This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, then I am going to move to try and have a full screen. I make my on my screen myself a little bit smaller so I can read my own slides. Mental safety in uncertain times. So as I mentioned, we have already started. The structure of today's workshop is that we start with a check-in that we have already done without recording that part. We're going to go into this presentation with some context and some tips and the recording, and then at the end I'll give you the opportunity to share or to discuss, to talk a little bit about what we have I have offered you, and there will not be a recording. I will stop the recording, and so we just agree with each other that we're gonna respect each other's confidentiality. Everybody might say something that they don't necessarily want everybody to spread into the rest of the world. You hardly know each other anyhow, but I'm just saying it to be clear that we're respecting the privacy of people who participate. So let's go into the core of the presentation today: mentally strong and positive. What does it mean? And let me just say a couple of words about the picture. I've chosen something from a trip that I had last year with my daughter in San Francisco. You see that this is one of the murals, that you find in some of the streets of San Francisco. GSB, that is the business school, the Stanford Business School, and I was struck when I was looking at my pictures. I was struck by the fact that now that I look at it 1 year after, during the pandemic, I look at it and it tells me, oh, that it looks like a lockdown because there are almost no people around. It's just many windows, maybe one person with walking a dog, only two cars around, maybe a little person hiding back there. So it feels like it's almost a representation of a quiet city. But that was a day with sunshine, and I'm still smiling. So I thought, let's put that as a symbol of the fact that we can still be mentally strong and positive, even when the conditions are so weird, so strange, and a little bit, too closed and not very social, and we need to get adapted to something that can provide some discomfort. So let's go into that with the idea that I would like not to jump around with joy, because that is unrealistic, but to stay optimistic and to stay as positive as we can be in order to be strong, because that is the association. If we manage not to go into a pool of negativity, we can keep some strength that protects us from burnout, from over depression, from exhausting ourselves, and also protects us in general to be stronger against any potential sickness or anything that can come our way. So let's move on. And the key points that I'm going to cover today are, first of all, I'm going to insist very much and maybe repeat a few times that uncertainty is the brain's worst nightmare. And I keep repeating it because it is important to notice it and to tell ourselves and to say it is normal to feel a little bit different than usual, to feel provoked, to feel tired, to feel that this is hard, because uncertainty, everything new, everything different, adapting to new situations and not knowing how we can cope and how long, etc., is really taking a toll on us. So I want to talk about how to be kind with yourself so that you can keep strength in this period. The other thing is, I'm going to go into some ideas, some explanations about what happens when we are stimulated by the uncertainty. We have some instinctive protective reactions. Sometimes we have some automatic reflexes that drive us into a direction that is not very productive for us, that is actually counterproductive. And so how to recognize these instincts and how to change and have a productive response. How can we consciously choose? And I will give you, again, a couple of tips. You probably read already something in my one of my articles, the seven sins and tips. So we'll go a little bit into that, and I will use an interesting model. If you don't know it, this could be something new. If you know it, you will be interested in seeing the application of this SCARF model to the situation in which we're in. Because no matter how many tips I can give you, you need to find your own ways in your own specific situation. And I think that the SCARF model will help you to have a sort of a roadmap or a methodology that will allow you to identify ways in which you can decrease some issues that are important for you and increase some parts that will keep you strong and motivated. So this is going to be the structure. And of course, if you have any questions, there is a chat in there. You can put down the chat. You can write down some comments or write down your questions for later for yourself, and we'll have a possibility to exchange later on. So let's talk about this awareness, how important it is to be aware, and also to be aware of the fact that sometimes our instincts takes us off track. Again, I continue to mention our brains perceive anything new or different as a potential threat, and create a sort of a body alert, an accelerated heartbeat. If you have ever followed any other courses with me, you know that I always mention that that we have this filter in the brain that says, this is new, so just because we don't know whether this is going to work out well or not, let's get prepared, and the heart beats a little bit faster, and so I feel rigid, and all of that gives me an impression that there is a sort of a red flag, and I might overthink about it. And in any case, that alertness, that accelerated heartbeat, consumes some energy, so I also get a little bit tired. But it might give the trigger to react in a way, as I was saying, that might not be very, very productive for us. So if we are aware that this is just a physical thing, it is possible to say, okay, I can stay calm and clear. If I don't know, I might overreact. And just give me let me give you a simple image, an example, like skidding. If you are on an icy surface with the car, and the car suddenly starts to move to go to the right, and you want to go straight, the instinct is the thing that gets you to say, oh, this is dangerous, and instinctively you tend to react, to push on the brakes, and maybe to counter steer to bring the car back into the right direction. And if you do any of those things, it's really counterproductive. You risk to really lose control of the car. You cannot brake abruptly or counter steer equally abruptly. That is the instinct, that's an automatism, and it just doesn't work. We need to train ourselves. That's why the Norwegians train in order to get the driving license, to learn how to drive on ice. They have to practice a few times. The people, the instructors, put some oil on the road and they force them to lose control. You have to practice to recognize that you're losing the car, and to accompany the car, to steer in the direction of the deviation, and then gradually bring it back. So you first have to get control of the car again, and then you bring it back and smoothly brake. It's a counterintuitive thing. It is not what the automatism suggests to do, but it is responding in a healthy, safe way rather than reacting in an unsafe way. So that's the metaphor that I want to bring to you today. And everything that we're going to talk about will be about how instinct can happen and can be, naturally bringing you in a direction. And if you know it, you can correct and you can do something that is better for you. I hope it makes sense. So let's go to these type of examples of how we can respond instead of reacting. Okay, I said that uncertainty can be unsettling. So let's talk about this uncertainty that triggers the impression of threat and the automatic pilot that forces us to go into overthinking, which creates stress and fatigue. I start to think, how can I protect myself? I want to know it all. Maybe I want to find the information, and then I get fatigued also by information overload. And I try to solve a puzzle, which is sometimes impossible. Can I travel? Can I not? Do I see the people? Do I not? Should I go to the office or not? There are lots and lots and lots of questions that are different for each of us. And my tip is watch out for an information fatigue. Trying to figure it all out can be tiring, in addition to the fact that we're already fatigued and tired. Can I do this? Can I do that? What happens if? What happens? That sometimes we want to know too much in terms of reading all of the statistics. They're not going to help us to stay safe. But watch out. It is a normal desire for all of us to know what is happening, but we can just add up too much tiredness. The other thing is, of course, we might feel unusually tired. That means that we need to recognize that even when we are worried, we use mental energy, and we do tend to ruminate a lot, or we can think over different things. So this is also exhausting for the mind. Even if it is a normal protective reaction, we do tend to imagine the worst possible scenario. What happens? The one of us who was saying, I got a new job, or I was thinking, maybe they will take the offer back. I had to, I had my son getting married in another country. Maybe I will not go. Can I go? Can I not go? I imagine, if I don't go, what happens? I will miss it. I will always, regret it. So we imagine the worst case scenario, and we build a lot of uh, thoughts in our mind, and we get enormously tired. So we have to watch out for that. And that means that we have to be able to recognize that we do tend to have negative thoughts, because that is a protective mechanism. And when we start to have those catastrophic ideas, it's important to have a self-talk. Come on, that is just my worries, the warrior in my head talking. There are other alternatives. Yes, it can go very bad. It can also go well. So let's distress. Let's rest our head. And of course, in these situations, we might sometimes experience some self-doubt. We might feel guilty for not knowing how to protect ourselves or others, although things are actually out of our control. I coach a lot of managers who say, I do feel guilty because I don't know how to take care of my family back in the country where I'm from, because I'm expat. So I should have the answer. Or we may struggle to find the right choice or the right answer, which doesn't exist. I have people who have been really challenged in their work. I used to have marketing responsibility. I used to sponsor big events, sport events, and now they're no longer there. What do I do? What is the right answer? I might not feel like I am the person that I thought I am. So self-doubt and struggling with believing that there is the miraculous answer. So this is something that we have to be aware of, and stop that self-doubt and say, yeah, so there is the self-judge that is talking, but it's important to be kind with myself. That things are so uncertain that it we don't know. We're learning that day by day. We can't feel guilty for something which is out of our control. So I know that it is not easy to just say, I'm worried, let's not worry. The important thing is to recognize the train of thoughts, and to say it's normal to feel worried, and I have a strong voice that tends to exaggerate things. So I'm going to try and keep it under control, and have a sort of uh, soft noise of the voice that says there could be a better way of doing things, and I'm not going to over listen to the judge in my head. And we may experience anxiety in addition to worries, just to really feel that whatever I'm doing, it is a risk, because there's so much that we don't know. So in that case, we tend to paralyze and not not make decisions, not do something that we wish to do. So watch out for the fear paralysis and focus on what you can control. And maybe it's funny, but I say, like our breathing. There are things that we can control, and sometimes it is so crazy that even just getting resuming control of your breathing and being breathing regularly can actually calm you down and make you feel, it can make you feel that you are in control of something, and it gives back a little bit of strength, so you don't need to be paralyzed, because there is at least something that you can do. And of course, another thing that can happen is that we can become cynical, and all of those things are things that they can all happen to all of us. Maybe for a minute, maybe for a day, maybe for an hour, but they're very normal. We don't need to beat ourselves in the back for experiencing normal reactions, but it happens. So there we can become cynical. Maybe we start to think we cannot do nothing. Maybe we sink in depression. Maybe I work from home, so who cares? I can stay with my pajama. So watch out for sinking into some unhealthy practices, because too many chips, too many nuts. So I mean, we all do that. We're home or we're stressed because we have to go to a place of work which is stressful or whatever, and we might get into routines that are not healthy, because who cares? Nobody knows. Maybe I'm getting sick tomorrow. So cynicism is one of the possible things that can happen that we have to watch out for. And judgment, becoming judgmental, is also quite natural. Every time we have some problems, it's just so natural to think someone must be guilty, someone will have to pay for my feeling bad, and I know how, who I have to blame. There's always someone who's made a decision, and politicians or some or bosses or whatever, they do not know how to help me. So we start to talk and exchange mails or whatever about all of the things that other people are doing wrong. And by exchanging all of that judgment and negativity, we just fill ourselves with a lot of negativity. So watch out for bitching or criticizing others, because it just plays back. And okay, it spreads negativity towards the others as well, but actually we do feel heavier under the load of throwing things out to others. And sometimes we can feel like a victim. Now we are the victim of a situation that we haven't, that has fallen onto us. But sometimes we want to tell everybody how bad the world is is treating us, and we want to say how it's not fair. And it can become something like, from the victim you become a martyr, and you're just staying inside your shell, and you are not able to find alternatives to to, to, to pick yourself up, and to stay a little bit stronger emotionally. So it could be an excuse. It's very scary sometimes not to know, to be in a very unusual situation. So going into the shell and saying I can't do nothing, everything is happening to me, I'm in control of nothing, seems to be like sometimes a way to protect yourself, but it actually makes you feel even more powerless. And so watch out for getting into the martyr fable, transforming your victim situation into the martyr story. And here, if you followed me, you've probably learned from me some, stretching exercises. You know how it is. If we go like this, it's unlikely that we feel positive thoughts. If we open up, then it is easier to start to change the thoughts, and to charge ourselves with positive energy. We can choose our behavior. We can recognize and accept the instinct. That is my main message. And recognize and accept. Recognize is I'm able to tell myself, oh, okay, here it is. I'm playing the martyr, or I'm becoming cynical, or I'm being judgmental, or whatever. And accepting it, I don't need to feel, oh, I'm doing something bad. No, I can accept it, and I can say this is natural, but I know that I don't let it uh, drive my behavior. So uneasy feelings that we do not welcome are the instinct. We do not welcome them, but they happen. We cannot control them. They happen. So what do? We want to respond rather than react. So the instinct is actually the voice of fear. And the positive response is what we want to replace it with. So let's think about the examples that I've given you in the in one of my articles, my newsletters. I talked about uh, the seven mistakes or the seven sins and the seven tips. So let's look at them and see where is the voice of fear and where's the positive response. So the denial or fatigue is what I was um, uh, mentioning as not recognizing that uh, there is a natural fatigue. So many managers tell me in these days when I've been coaching people for for the last 2.5 months basically, where there's been different levels of lockdowns and working in different conditions. People in plants or people working from home. Everybody tends to mention that they feel tired, but they also tell me that they feel bad about feeling tired. Oh my gosh, I need so much more sleep. Yes, that is true. So let's not be in denial of fatigue. Yes, uncertainty is tiring. Yes, we needed to tell ourselves that we needed to maybe sleep more, rest more, walk more, do something to distress more. It is natural. We don't need to feel bad about it. Then there is the other sin, which is the prover. I expected to be as competent as I have always been. I used to have all of the answers. Now I don't know. Well, we don't know because the situation has changed. Uh, the other one is the rescuer. You uh, you want to resolve it for yourself and for the others. You want to reassure. You want to. I had one person in a plant who said, "Our plant is very old. We need to restructure all of the to refigure out all of the processes because people keep bumping on each other. It's food. We have to continue to produce, but it's critical. So myself and my management team, we locked ourselves into working day and night over a weekend to figure out all of the new processes and how to change things. And I asked, have you talked to the people who are actually on the line? No, I hadn't thought about it. So they exhausted themselves trying to rescue and solve everything without just, sharing the responsibility that the crisis is for everybody. So everybody can be can have ideas, and especially if it concerns themselves, they can be involved into finding a solution. Another one of the sins is the prisoner. Of course, when we are in lockdown and sometimes it is not possible to do what we want, we lose autonomy, we lose freedom. It is terrible. We feel like prisoners, and we feel like the constraints are limiting us, and we get very negative. Sometimes we can still go out, sometimes not. Sometimes we can have our place of work available to us if we want it. Sometimes we're locked into a place with family, little children. We don't have a space for working, so it could be hard, and so that is where we can find some rewarding alternatives for ourselves to feel that we are not just prisoners, but we are choosing. I will never stop talking with my clients about the big difference in it that it makes in our head to say I want and I choose vis-a-vis I should. I should stay home. It is good to be, to be protective. It is good to have a distance. They tell me, should is like, something that is imposed onto you. It feels like you're heavy under a sort of a punishment. But if you say, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, it's unpleasant, but I choose to follow the rules because I want it, because I feel that it's actually safer. You feel like a hero if you tell yourself I want, I choose. It will actually gives you a lot more strength to deal with it than if you say, oh, I should. Try it. try just to change the words in your head. It will change the level of energy that you have. The other one is the needy, and the needy is something that we see very much today, with everybody getting panicking because there's there's not enough social contact. We are social people. Even the introverts, they like to have sometimes someone to touch, to hug, or whatever, and or to see face to face, and then we might be missing that, and we might resort to reactions. The fear of being isolated might get us to go on Facebook all of the time, answer all of the chain letters. I see so much stuff being exchanged, and I'm asked to be involved into so many things that I don't have any energy for, and I see that it is like the neediness. So it's you get stimulated by others who are also feeling very isolated, and they want to get into content, to be sure that you watch out for that, and you choose which ones are the contents that are appropriate for you, that you have time and energy for, that really replenish your energy, because they give you something, you have an exchange of some values. And be careful just in having a lot of superficial content with hundreds of people on all of the WhatsApp and you name it, and they just add a lot of distractions and a lot of mental energy, and they don't really fill our need for social contacts. It's only an illusion. And then there is the judge. The judge, I think that we mentioned that before. That we tend to go and be very much shaking hands about things that ourselves or other people are doing or shouldn't be doing. And yeah, that's a very extensive type of exercise that we don't want to indulge too much into. We want to be factual and say, let's learn. And obviously the important thing is also to realize that in uncertainty, nobody has the big answer, the true answer. The patterns from the past, they don't work. So yeah, it is helpful to trust rather than to be afraid. To trust and to believe that most people will try to do the best, and they make day by day the best decisions that they can. And it's not easy to know which one is the best choice, and we will know it in hindsight. So right now, let's just trust that most everybody are trying to do what makes sense, and we're all trying and testing. And finally, and then we talked about it, is playing the victim. Let's watch out about that. We want to protect ourselves by inactivity. I can't do nothing. It's not my fault. It's just come over me. But we can just own it. So these are the tips that I also mentioned into the my messages, my written messages. But as I was mentioning at the beginning, it doesn't really. It is not possible to mention something that is valid for everybody, because each situation is so different. So I want to give you the model. I want to offer a model which is called the SCARF model, because that gives, as I said at the beginning, in a framework that can help you figure out your own decisions, your own actions, your own strategy for dealing with the situation. What is the SCARF model? The SCARF model deals with the social domains that are influenced by the threat reward responses. So when we are in a social situation, then there is always that balance of being, the fear and the trust, being a little bit, cautious, or trusting completely, protect or connect. We're always into trying to find that type of balance. And SCARF is a method that was developed by David Rock, the founder of the Neuro Leadership Institute. SCARF is like the protective scarf, so that protects us it's good in this period. It protects us against adversities, against the flu, and in a sense, we could say against the negative mental and emotional impact uh, of the COVID these days. Excuse me, this is my allergy kicking in. Um, and it is also, SCARF is also an algorithm, an acronym for the 5 domains: the status, certainty, autonomy, and relatedness and fairness domains that we need to consider every time we are in a social situation. Status always means that we need to be, to be sure that we protect, our relative importance to the others. So if we're just not, if our status, if our credibility or whatever is really not valued at all, we feel under threat. If it is appreciated, we're into the reward situation. That is what it means. Certainty is about the ability to predict the future. Autonomy is about having control over events. Relatedness is about the sense of safety with others. And the fairness is about equitable exchanges. So in which sense can we use this to help us? Let's see. What we want to do is we want to decrease the level of threats. But today in pandemic, actually, at first sight, it seems like the pandemic has increased the level of threats and decreased the rewards in all of these areas. Therefore, we tend to have a higher level of stress. So in terms of status, I was mentioning before, sometimes we are used to having to know what to do. We have a certain position, a certain expertise, and everything we know and everything we are seems to be less relevant than before. So it kind of affects a little bit our status. We feel a little bit more threatened. And in terms of certainty, everything is different and unsure. We have no visibility of what is going to happen, the markets, the economy, this and that, the jobs, will I keep it or not? So this is clearly, a situation where we've moved towards more threats than rewards. Autonomy, yes, the crisis and the measures tend to be out of my control. I'm told whether I can go to the office or not. I can take the public transport or not. I can go to the restaurant or not. Relatedness, there is distancing, so I'm isolated and I miss the usual types of contacts. I'm more into my social being is threatened, and there is very little reward. Fairness, it is unfair, because if I look around, every situation is so different, and there is nothing adapted to each country, each group, each conditions of work. Some people are too much crowded in the family, someone are too much alone. So there is someone needs to work overtime, someone is not is out of work, loses a job even. So this is all very unfair. So if you look at the pandemic at first sight, it looks like it is really a situation that tends to dramatically increases the level of threats and increase the threats and decrease the rewards in all of those 5 key domains. So the trick for us, for each one of us, is to go into each one of these areas and find out our ways of decreasing the threats and increasing the rewards. And I can only give you some examples, but you will have to find out by yourself. So in terms of status, for example, how can you decrease the impression of threat in terms of status? Well, think about that. We often tend to think that we are who we are because of what we do. But actually, we're not human doings, we're human beings. So we can always reconsider ourselves, thinking about uh, even if I am not such an expert and I don't have the answers for my plant, for my group, for my job, for my family, because this is all new, I'm not the expert, but I am someone, and I can offer something of myself. So watch out for trying to overwork, trying to resume your status, like the example that I mentioned of the plant manager who was trying to redesign the processes working overnight because he wanted to to continue to be the one who knew it all without involving others. So we watch out for the risk of losing self-esteem, that is linked to potentially loss of work. Watch out for overcompensating with unhealthy alternatives. This is where you have to put your own example. But increasing the opportunity for reward means that you change the success criteria. So you start to think in terms of stages, in terms of me, what is it really important? Is it important that I have the answer, that I'm on top, that I know that I can help, that I am who I am, that I have this job and maybe I lose it, but I'm still there, I'm still a human being, I can provide empathy, I can be available for others, I can offer me, myself, and I have other things in me that I can continue to feel good about myself in my status. So this is just an example. I will leave you with this, because we don't need to go into every single one, but I have slides that will uh, uh, that you can read afterwards, that will give you some additional examples of how to decrease the impression of threat and increase the impression of the perception of rewards in certainty. For example, trying to make some pleasant routines for yourself and not to drift away. In autonomy, like make conscious decisions to own something, to be creative. A lot of people actually are starting to draw or to play again music. It's, when you feel like everything is imposed on you, you want to have a little bit of rebellion things, a little bit of artistic. You want to take something that rewards yourself in having your own freedom and autonomy. You can find your own ways in relatedness, and as I mentioned before, maybe not choose a friend and not a 75, and make the context warmer. Learn also to share more the feelings. Sometimes we are ashamed, we are shy, and let's use this opportunity to get better in contact with a few people, and discover how rewarding it is, and to have a different type of relationship with some people that maybe before we were only just superficial in contact with. And in terms of fairness, well, remember that each one of us can be an advocate of something, and can give an example, be a role model for someone else. So we might not change the entire politic of a country, but we can, one little drop at a time, everyone can bring some concepts of fairness into our everyday world. So with this model, with the SCARF model, I hope that you can, look into it and have a little reflection on how can I make it work for my own situation? What can I find for myself in these areas that can help me to decrease the impression of threats and increase the impression of rewards. So that is all what I wanted to share with you today. The 50 minutes of my presentation are gone, and now we have the possibility to discuss, to share. I welcome your questions, your reflections, and I will stop the recording so that we can open up the floor to everybody else. Let me see, pause.